Only 29% of sellers hit quota last year. Estimates range from 25 to 50%, so we can quibble about the exact number, but the high-level problem is clear, and it's dire. Now, the most common response I see from PE sponsors and operators is to blame the reps. Fire the bottom third, hire different talent, maybe bring in a new VP of sales. What doesn't get discussed, because it often isn't well understood, is that the problem isn't just the sales reps and talent. It's a lack of sales process, training, methodology, playbooks, onboarding, enablement, and more. And certainly talent in most organizations is distributed according to a natural bell curve, so much of the talent is average and the left tail is honestly pretty poor. But the biggest factor in my experience is actually inept sales management. For clarity, we might call it a VP of sales or a CRO, but in most lower middle market industrial companies, there's one person who's got about 10 reps rolling up to them in terms of span of control. I call that a sales manager, someone with direct sales reports. And the real problem is what those managers aren't doing. Coaching. Richardson Sales recently released a report on sustained behavior change in sales organizations. I'll drop a link to the report below in the show notes. One stat jumped out of that report. Only 17% of sales managers actually help their sellers apply new skills or knowledge to their work. 17%. That means 83% of your frontline sales leadership is essentially performative when it comes to development. I'm Ed Marsh. I work with middle market sponsors and portcos in the industrial manufacturing space. And my findings from the work that I do with industrial sales teams, across teams I've evaluated over the last couple of years, matches this. Only half of all reps even get any coaching on something as simple as technical features or just encouragement. Now that's bad. But what's really, really bad though, is this. Only 22% of industrial reps get any coaching on sales tactics, and only 14% anything related to sales process. Think about that in the context of a PE-backed industrial portco. You've got a hold period, you've got a growth thesis that increasingly hinges on organic growth, and the people responsible for driving that growth, your frontline sales managers, aren't doing the basic work that's necessary. To put this in context, this is analogous to, let's say, if the monthly books aren't consistently closed until a quarter later, instead of digging into why, simply calling meetings to ask for an update and exhorting people to get it done. Why? It's not because they're lazy, although some might not be willing to do the work with the necessary hours and to lead by example, doing the hard things themselves as well. Often, though, they've never been trained how to be a sales manager, how to manage, how to lead, how to sell with discipline, and how to help others do the same according to a deliberate, specific, repeatable process. Often they were promoted out of a quota-carrying role. They were the best rep, often selling on instinct, not even articulating why they're successful. They hit quota, they knew the product, they had relationships, and so they were made managers. But nobody taught them how to coach. Nobody gave them a framework. Nobody holds them accountable for developing their people. They default to deal inspection, reviewing pipelines, asking about close dates, maybe jumping on a call to rescue a deal. That's not coaching. That's playing a more expensive version of the rep role. Here's where it gets worse. Most of these portcos don't have a consistent documented sales process to begin with, so even if the manager wanted to coach to what? And many of these managers don't have the sales management acumen to recognize what a massive gap that is. There's no standard for what a good discovery call sounds like. There's no defined methodology for how to advance an opportunity. There's no shared language for what's happening in a deal. You can't reinforce behaviors that haven't been defined. And this is where role-playing comes in. Role-playing is the single most underused and most effective tool for locking in new selling behaviors. The behavioral science is clear. People don't retain skills from a single exposure. They need spaced repetition. They need to practice in a low-risk environment before they execute in front of a customer. They need feedback that's immediate and specific. Role-playing does all of that. A 10-minute role-play before a customer meeting where the manager plays the buyer and the rep practices their approach does more for skill development and successful sales calls than a full day of classroom training. It forces retrieval, it builds muscle memory, it gives the manager a chance to observe and correct in real time. But almost nobody does it. Reps resist it because it feels uncomfortable. Managers avoid it because they don't know how to run one effectively. And leadership doesn't mandate it because they've never seen it modeled and don't understand the critical role that it plays. So you end up with this cycle. You invest in training, sellers attend a workshop, They're energized for a week. They go back to their territories. Their managers don't reinforce what was taught. Nobody practices, and within 6 weeks, everyone's reverted back to their old habits. Richardson's research confirms this. Without reinforcement in the first 48 hours and sustained practice over the following weeks, new behaviors simply don't stick. That's not surprising. I like to use the football analogy. You'd laugh at a team that came off of game day, put X's and O's on the chalkboard for the next opponent, and then went home until the next game. There's film to watch. There's research on the opponent. There's specific planning, then the chalkboard, then walkthroughs, then run-throughs, and then more run-throughs until it's reflex. We expect that for a simple game, but we don't deliver that in our organic growth plan for our LPs. If you're a PE sponsor or a portco CEO, and you're frustrated that your sales team isn't executing, start here. Don't look at the reps first. There may be an issue there for sure, but look at your managers. Ask them what they coached on last week. Ask them to describe their coaching framework. Role play coaching with them. Ask them when the last time was that they ran a role play with one of their sellers. If they can't answer those questions clearly, then my guess is you don't have a sales execution problem, you have a sales leadership problem first. And no amount of new training, new CRM tools, new AI gadgets, or new hires will fix it until you address the layer that's supposed to be making everything else work. The 29% quota attainment number isn't necessarily just a seller problem, it's a system problem. And the system starts with managers who know how to coach, they have something consistent to coach on, and they use role playing to make new skills stick. That's the fix. It's not glamorous, it's not a new tech stack, but it's the difference between a growth thesis that lives on just a slide and one that shows up in the numbers.